So this is the third workshop for the Rural Technical Assistance Pre-Apprenticeship workshop. The first one we had was last week, and that was a really nice overview around what is a pre-apprenticeship, what is an apprenticeship, and kind of the big picture. Then earlier this week on Tuesday, we had some really great people come in and share about their existing programs and what they look like and how they run those. It was neat kind of seeing the differences between the programs. And then today we're going to look at the state certification and how we actually become a program. We've got two people with us, Shireen and John, who are going to be helping us along with Gabby. And so this whole venture has been fantastic, and it's been a combination of Mount Hood Community College with Kristen, Gresham Barlow and myself, and then Gabby with ODE, and then various people from Bully helping us out to really learn what we're doing here so we can all, it's the right track for us, get going with pre-apprenticeship. So without further ado, Gabby, I'm going to go ahead and hand it off to you.
Great. Thanks so much, Liz. And again, thanks everybody for being here with us today and choosing to spend some of your afternoon with us. My name is Gabby Sloss, and I'm with the Oregon Department of Education and the Higher Education Coordinating Commission, serving as a liaison with the Bureau of Labor and Industries-Apprenticeship and Training Division. Today, we are going to be taking you through the Oregon Apprenticeship State Certification process for pre-apprenticeship. Today, with us, we'll have our two other experts here to share their experiences, but also what is what the Bureau of Labor and Industry and the Oregon State Apprenticeship and Training Council is looking for when submitting your application, which should align with the first two sessions as Liz talked about in terms of what is pre-apprenticeship, what is the purpose, and program design and next steps. So I'm going to ask Shireen Vogel from Lane County to introduce herself, and you can see her picture up there or whatever it may land on your screen.
Thanks, Gabby. My name is Shireen Vogel. I'm CTE Regional Coordinator housed at Lane ESD, and we serve 16 school districts, a large consortium, and Lane Community College is our post-secondary partner in the area.
And Shireen, do you mind really quickly just sharing the impetus or purpose for developing your pre-apprenticeship program?
Yeah, we, I think, you know, it had been some years kind of in development, but there was the construction trades, the programs of study in the area really, there had been a lot of momentum, and there was a lot of interest from industry. And of course, the collaboration with our community college is really strong with the pre-apprenticeship program there. And so it felt like it was just sort of the time was right and ripe, and looking at ways to expand, really to look at some of those non-traditional, oh my gosh, the word I'm looking for, but to look for participants that were outside of, you know, the traditional realm, and just lots of, it just felt like everybody was really ready, and we had a great, the Stephanie Tonelli, who's the Bully rep in our area, was also just really fundamental, along with Gabby, in terms of being at the table. And so it felt like the time was right. So yeah. I don't know if that.
Awesome. Yeah, absolutely. And we'll get into more details a little bit later about those people at the table and how it all came together. So thank you. John, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
No. Hi, I'm John Kersey, and I'm with the Apprenticeship and Training Division, which is a part of the Bureau of Labor and Industries. I've been with the division for about a decade by choice, and I really believe in apprenticeship. I think it's a worthwhile method of providing pathways to training to help our industries out. And more importantly, my purpose here today is to help you folks understand the bureaucratic maze of getting your pre-apprenticeship program registered with the state. And one element I find really important about pre-apprenticeship programs is that the pathway for getting into apprenticeship is already difficult for many. Pre-apprenticeship programs help provide a foundation, a pathway, and opportunity. And that's the main thing I want to point on, is opportunity to those who might not have had the opportunity to meet the minimum qualifications or gain access to registered apprenticeship. Because registered apprenticeship provides everyone with a high-paying wage, a livable wage, and a career. And I don't know about you folks, but having a career is a very important aspect for me, because it helps give me purpose in what I do for my daily operations. And also it helps me provide for my family. So those of you who are interested in becoming pre-apprenticeship partners, I commend you, because this is a wonderful foundation to help provide opportunity to people who might not have had that in the past. Does that work, Abby?
Thanks. Yes, thank you, John. Really appreciate both of you being here today to share some of your experiences through this process and your lenses. So today we are going to probably spend less time learning about registered apprenticeship and pre-apprenticeship in Oregon. The last two sessions, you've seen some videos and we've gone into depth. We're going to probably do more of a quick overview of some of that information for you, so that we can spend a lot more time around developing your step-by-step process for submitting a pre-apprenticeship application. This will be your time. We have, I can see several different representatives across the state, whether you're from a secondary institution, community college, post-secondary, in terms of business and industry, labor, and apprenticeship partners that are here today, and want to invite those that are here to share the space with us. This is not just a John, Gabby, and Shireen show today, so there's a lot of wisdom in the room that needs to be shared, so please feel free to do so as we're going through this. And then lastly, just end with some resources again for Oregon apprenticeship and contact information. Want to reiterate again that this webinar series, this workshop, is from a Rural Technical Assistance Initiative that the state of Oregon wanted to achieve with some of the federal grant dollars that we received over the last few years. One of those being informing our rural areas and spending more time learning from our rural areas about registered apprenticeship and pre-apprenticeship, and how we, as a system between the Department of Education, the Employment Department, the Higher Education Coordinating Commission, and the Bureau of Labor of Industry, and how we can better support rural areas in accessing and developing pathways to registered apprenticeship. So this is a quick overview of pre-apprenticeship and registered apprenticeships in Oregon. And I do see there's a question about, are any of you currently starting a brand new program out there? And I don't know if that's for everybody in the room or not, but in the chat, if you want to go ahead and answer, please do. We'd love to learn more as well about what's happening across the state. The partnership system in Oregon, this is our infographic, if you will, about who's all involved in making registered apprenticeship in Oregon work. At the top there is the Registration, Regulation, and Technical Assistance arm, which is your Bureau of Labor and Industry and the Oregon State Apprenticeship and Training Council. And then we have related training certificates and degrees. Those would be your post-secondary institutions and community colleges, and I see several of them in the room today, which includes Rogue Valley Community College, Mount Hood Community College, Blue Mountain Community College. We've had Treasure Valley Community College on these calls. So those colleges do make up there's a total of 13 out of the 17 that play a role in registered apprenticeship. So know that you have local contacts out there that can help in understanding the system in your region and how it connects to the larger one. There's the workforce system of this infographic here. Obviously, job seekers, people that are returning to the workforce, incumbent workers looking to skill up. So the much needed and a much needed partner in registered apprenticeship, and then on the job training provided by industry. All of those make up what is registered apprenticeship and pathways to pre-apprenticeship. Currently in Oregon, we have about 150 registered apprenticeship programs. We also have 29, I keep wanting to say 26, 29 registered pre-apprenticeship programs. We have an estimated 10,405 registered apprentices in those 150 apprenticeship programs. The demographic information below is a breakdown of that 10,000 or so apprentices, with about 22% of underrepresented populations, which I believe Shireen was trying to talk about in terms of whether it's by gender, veteran status, socioeconomic status, people of color. That is what we're referring to when we're talking about underrepresented populations in registered apprenticeship. And there's about 4,963 active employers that are a part of those 150 registered apprenticeship programs that make those up. All right. Without further ado, I'm going to hand this off to John to talk a little bit more about the Oregon State Apprenticeship and Training Council, who is that governing arm, I guess, if you will, around registered apprenticeship and pre-apprenticeship, and talk a little bit about that process.
All right.
John?
So the Oregon State Apprenticeship and Training Council is a body that is elected by the governor and put forward to govern all aspects of apprenticeship for the state of Oregon. In order to give you folks an idea as to how that is structured, you have the Apprenticeship and Training Division, where you have the apprenticeship representatives, which are the ones that deal with you folks on a day-to-day basis. And then you also have the Director of Apprenticeship, who serves as a secretary to the OSAT. The Labor Commissioner is the chair, and how that works is you have both body, you have the management, and you have the labor represented on the council. And the Oregon State the OSAT, as we call it, also has the participation from various aspects of industry, whether it be building, construction, industrial, or other sectors outside of the building construction trades. They are generally anywhere from 6 to 8 members that they're, as I said before, appointed by the governor. And the most important element of them is that they approve all actions for apprenticeship. In other words, all policies, all programs, all changes to standards. They're the ones who approve all those statewide changes that affect programs. You can go ahead next, Gabby. Now, in addition to approving registered apprenticeship programs, they also approve pre-apprenticeship programs. And that's an important aspect because we recently introduced, maybe 4 years ago, the the OAR, which is the Oregon Administrative Rule, which outlined pre-apprenticeship programs. And then most recently in the 2929, the federal government outlined in federal rule the elements for a pre-apprenticeship program as well. So as the slide says, a pre-apprenticeship program is a preparatory program that prepares people to meet the minimum qualifications for apprenticeship. And it's important because it helps provide people who are in underrepresented populations access to higher paying wages. Go ahead, Gabby. I'll let Gabby go ahead and explain the 10, 13, 12.
So if you'd like to, on your own time, you can Google what 10, 13, 12 is, which is a technical, of course now it's just slipped my mind, but it's a notification about what makes up a quality work pre-apprenticeship program, and it's called 10, 13, 12. What you may not know is that what this notification outline is, someone, if you can mute yourself, we're getting your background noise. Sorry about that. I can do that actually. I'm just gonna mute all for 1 second. Can you still hear me? Can I get a thumbs up if people can? Okay, cool. Sorry about that. So this framework from 10.13.12 is actually exemplified is an example of Oregon tradeswomen and what they have identified that makes a quality program. It's about partnerships. It's about your participant recruitment and selection methods, the training curriculum, retention strategies, and sustainability. All of these 5 bullet points that you see here today are wrapped up into what you'll see later as we walk through this process is the pre-apprenticeship toolkit and guidelines for program. And you may recognize many of these topics or these bullet points from our earlier sessions 1 and 2 when talking about pre-apprenticeship and key elements to make a quality pre-apprenticeship program. So before you get started, and John will speak to this, and this is where Shireen is going to also jump in and add her lessons learned or things that came out of their experience in developing and submitting a pre-apprenticeship application, are these 3 key pieces of information. Is before you even get started, get your partners on board early. And that also means when we're talking about partners, we're talking about 1, your registered apprenticeship sponsors or partners. It is a requirement of becoming a pre-apprenticeship program that you are aligned with and have at least 1 registered apprenticeship sponsor as part of your program. You can have as many as you want, but you have to have a minimum of 1. Then industry, other education representatives, community partners, whoever, that's great. But we cannot stress enough that having a registered apprenticeship sponsor at the table, and you may have heard of us referring to those as just registered apprenticeship partners, programs, they need to be at the table working with you hand in hand. Identify a pathway that aligns with registered apprenticeship in the program area. That obviously means construction, for example. Is that your pathway? You're going to want to have construction represented as a part of your partners in this program. Yes, having plumbers, electricians, and whoever else can be included in that pathway. But whoever you're aligning with, your program needs to align with their standards or their occupation. And 3, contact Loli, please, and work and make sure that you have an apprenticeship representative walking you through this process through every step. It's going to make it a lot easier for you, your partners, and eventually the people that you were hoping to serve, to make sure that you're getting it right the first time and not having to be disappointed or feel like you didn't know that you needed to have certain things. We want to work with you, and John can send that message to you as well, but we all want to work with you and make sure that this is a successful process for everybody. And that means starting early with making sure you have the right people at the table. John or Shireen, John, and then Shireen, if you want to add anything.
Sure. So Gabby's correct. You want to get your partners on board early. Aligning who your registered apprenticeship program sponsor is going to be is important. This process is not difficult. It may seem daunting because you have to interact with a government agency, but this process has been really outlined to be super simple and accessible. That's the main word I want to stress, is accessible to everyone who wants to start a pre-apprenticeship program. As Gabby mentioned before, the partners, we do require you to be partnered with at least one registered apprenticeship program. We will refer to registered apprenticeship programs as apprenticeship programs, sponsors. Sponsors is a big term because that's a federal term. Sponsors or training programs. All three of those are going to be commingled into that one idea that is registered apprenticeship. Now, the one thing I want to stress on is the pathway. That's going to be an extremely important element to your application, because the pathway should outline what they're going to be learning and what skills are going to be required in order to make that transition from your pre-apprenticeship program to a registered apprenticeship program. So if they're going to be if you're looking at having a pre-apprenticeship program for sheet metal workers, that pre-apprenticeship program should have classes and work processes and skills being learned to make them a suitable applicant to meet those minimum qualifications to gain entry. Otherwise, it won't work. So the pathway is extremely important, and that requires a lot of forward thinking and planning and strategizing with your apprenticeship sponsor to really develop a fully competent curriculum. And then, yes, contacting BOLI, you'll be contacting me for the immediate future for at least a couple months. I'll be the one you talk to. So get used to my voice, whether you like it or not. I'm the guy. Green?
Yeah, thanks. It's gosh, I'm trying to think. I have a number of things, and I would say absolutely that first bullet for me feels kind of like absolutely key. We were lucky enough, and I actually private chatted him in the chat box, but AGC, we had partnership with, Aaron was at the table with us. Our workforce partnership was at the table. Our community college folks were at the table. And we actually felt like we were lucky enough to have, labor from union and non-union side, hand in hand, and the registered apprenticeship folks all working together to agree to, this is kind of to John's point, this is these are the skills that are needed. This is what we want to see. These are the outcomes, and really embed that in and come to an agreement. Over the course, it really took, we really started kind of in force, meeting pretty much almost once a month for nearly an entire school year to get to the point of submitting the application. That, I don't know that that's necessary, but and then we had, as I've mentioned before, but a really strong alliance and partnership with our BOLI apprenticeship rep, Stephanie. She was at every single meeting, and she met with me between meetings, and we really sat down and worked through portions of the application to see what we needed to focus on and sort of the direction and guidance. And then leading up to what John and Gabby have mentioned, which is the presentation portion in front of the committee to say, here's our final application. We may have gone a little bit over the top, but we brought in force a whole kind of, I don't even remember how many folks were there at the first committee meeting, but I think maybe there were like 10 of us that showed up at the council meeting to present, and it was representatives from the registered apprenticeship side, it was folks from the community college, it was secondary teachers that were part of this, and I think it just sort of brought home that idea that this is a collaborative across sort of the entire education spectrum, but also across the labor spectrum, and that what we're trying to do is open pathways for students. And so I'll stop there.
No, that's great. Thank you, Shireen. Are you ready, John?
Fire away. So in order to get you prepped and get your submission in, the Apprenticeship and Training Division has developed what we call the Pre-Apprenticeship Program Application Toolkit. or as I like to call it, the Pre-Apprenticeship Toolkit. I know my slang here is really top key. This toolkit will outline all the regulatory requirements, all the submission requirements, and all of the criteria that are necessary in order to get your program approved. The purpose behind creating this toolkit was to, number one, take everything that you hear over the phone or in an email and put it into a concrete little packet to provide you step-by-step instructions. Go ahead, Gabby.
Okay, I would just like to say that many of you who have been around a long time know that the process for applying to be a pre-apprenticeship program was a checklist, and that was it. And many of you may find that we might have gone overboard, but wanted to make sure that even the process, this toolkit was created to provide a little bit more detail and provide a common language between education, workforce, and labor around the purpose of and what makes a quality pre-apprenticeship program. So just wanted to throw that out there.
So as Gabby has put somewhat cockeyed, the Pre-Apprenticeship Training Provider Agreement, this is what your providers are going to fill out as part of the agreement to become a registered pre-apprenticeship program. It's fairly straightforward. It has all the applicants' information on it. So whenever you have a pre-apprentice that wants to be in the program, they fill out this form and then it gets submitted to BOLI. And we record that information in our database. And the purpose behind that is whenever we have a pre-apprentice enter into the program and then complete the program to go into a registered trade, we track that transition to show that the pre-apprenticeship programs are working and that there is a tangible benefit from having them established to our registered apprenticeship programs. So it's one of our methods of tracking to see how programs are doing. Go ahead, Gabby. Now, insofar as the applicant information, this packet is broken up into various sections. It's a long packet, probably about 15, 20 pages. I know many of you kind of groan, oh no, not that long. But it does provide a certification pathway for both your program as well as those who are engaged in it. Section A, Section B. Section A is primarily just the applicant information as far as the organization that you're putting forth. So it's fairly straightforward as far as what you are. If you are a non-for-profit or a labor organization, please be sure that you mark that. It helps us determine what factors and what sectors of industry you're actually participating, and where we're receiving the most interest from. If we're seeing a lot of non-for-profit organizations propping up a pre-apprenticeship, we want to know that so that we can say, okay, here's a sector of industry that has been really, really active in help promoting pre-apprenticeship. As a result, we want to devote more resources to that. You can go ahead and go to the next one, Gabby. Now, the program purpose. Out of the entire pre-apprenticeship packet, this is the most important because, number one, we want to know why you want to be a pre-apprenticeship. What's your purpose? What is your mission statement? We want to know the goals and the outcomes that you propose for this pre-apprenticeship program, as well as, more specifically, the targeted population that you're going to be serving. Are you going to be working with underprivileged youths? Are you going to be working with women, primarily women, high school students? Are you going to be working with people who have economic challenges or barriers to apprenticeship based upon education or where they are as far as demographics? We want to know that information so we can understand and also help connect you with other outreach facilities that will provide you with benefits. When we see, insofar as the outreach and recruitment methods, we want to know how you're going about doing recruitment for pre-apprentices. Are you working with a high school? Are you working with guidance counselors or career counselors? Are you working with workforce centers? Are you working with community-based organizations? We want to know what your plan is. And then also, such as things like the pre-assessment prerequisites. What are the prerequisites to become a pre-apprentice? Is it going to be 16 years of age? Is it going to be 18 years of age? Is it going to be, do they have a high school diploma? Do they have to have a GED? Or are there no education requirements? Are these geared toward high school students moving toward apprenticeship? We want to know, that way we can gauge exactly who you're working with and why. And then most importantly, what program you're working with. For example, if you are, we have some programs that work directly with the sheet metal workers. We have some programs that work directly with the inside electricians and or the plumbers. We want to know who your partner is going to be, because your partner is going to use you as a method not only for recruitment, but also for their affirmative action plans. So it's all interlaced and intermingled. Any questions about this section before I go on?
We're going to be going into depth a little bit more here on the next couple of slides about each of those sections. But Shireen, did you want to say anything? No?
Not at this moment.
Okay.
All right. Now, as I mentioned before, the purpose statement is an extremely important element as to what this application has in there. And when your program goes up for approval and you fill out this packet, you'll be working with me or another one of the ARs to outline your application and get your program submission. The purpose statement is what you're going to be using to propose to council. It's also what we're going to be using to determine the outcomes for your program. Developing work processes and related training to help develop those foundational skills for your pre-apprenticeship program are going to be integral into the approval process. We want to look and see if there are what you're doing and what they're going to be learning to help prepare them for a career pathway into registered apprenticeship programs. If this is geared toward high school students, if this is going to be in line with the CTE program, what curriculum is being used to help give these students necessary skills to be qualified applicants when they graduate? If this is working with underprivileged populations, or perhaps people who are looking for a new career but they don't have the necessary skills to be a qualified applicant, what you're doing in order to help them get from point A to point B. That's going to be an important element of this application. Gabby or Shireen, do you have any comments about that?
I would just say that our pre-apprenticeship program in Lane County is, I know that the example is brought up and I see it on here, moving into sheet metal or HVAC. For us, we focused our efforts with our construction technology programs, which we have 15 currently in the county. And so looking at kind of regionalizing, focusing efforts to, we started with 2 programs really with the application, but the idea is to expand, but making it focused and yet broad, right? So we're not sort of targeting any one particular trade. We're saying the registered trades construction umbrella, if you will.
And just I said this in the chat, but the 3 bullet points that you see here are program purpose statements from 3 registered pre-apprenticeship programs currently listed on the Bully website as well.
They are. And also, as far as the program goals and outcomes, this is going to be an important element where you outline, as I said before, the occupational objectives and what they're going to be learning is that align with the registered apprenticeship programs that you have a partnership with. How your program services the needs of the registered apprenticeship program. In other words, what gap or what niche are you actually fulfilling? Like, how are you helping them? And what's the purpose behind that? And then also, we want to know those people who go through your program, if they complete, we want to be notified that they complete. That way we can track the numbers of successful graduates from your program. Then also, regarding the mastery of skills, those mastery of skills provide a very important element to the application process for apprenticeship, because that mastery of skills enables them to be a qualified applicant. And a qualified applicant, when you're applying to an apprenticeship program, is extremely important, because if you aren't a qualified applicant, then you don't get past the door. Registered apprenticeship programs are very particular in that we make sure that every standard that is submitted to the division has minimum qualifications put forth. And every applicant must meet those minimum qualifications in order to be put into the applicant pool. And these pre-apprenticeship programs help create that, help facilitate those people who don't meet the minimum qualifications reaching that applicant pool to where they actually have an opportunity to become apprentices. So it's really important to have all those fleshed out in the pre-apprenticeship toolkit. Gabby, excuse me.
Yeah, I was just going to ask Shireen, in terms of your program, what are some of the completion verifications or industry recognized credentials students or apprentices are going to be hopefully achieving in your pre-apprenticeship program? What will they be working on?
Well, we do. So one of the core curriculum elements is Trade Skills Fundamentals, which is a course that it's an NCCER course that the craft skills, I believe it's called. And that is a pre-apprenticeship course at LCC. And so that's kind of like a critical must-have. We've also indicated that students have to have completed at least one full year in a program of study in construction technology. So getting at least a year of coursework there. In terms of, we have kind of a completion checklist that has a variety of things that students can choose from a list of options, but the completing a portfolio, they have to complete a portfolio, they have to do a resume, they have to have some sort of employer exit interview, and then there's a whole variety of options in terms of those additional certifications, like the NCRC and I'd have to go back and look. My mind is drawing a blank.
And when you say,
yeah,
Shereen, when you say we, who's the we here?
So this is, and I don't know, I don't want to jump ahead on topics, but when I think about, it's an opportunity and an awesome thing, but it's also a challenge. I think as a consortium, we are huge. And as I mentioned, we're 16 school districts and lots of partners. When I say we, Laney SD is the applicant, is the for the application. But as a regional coordinator, I am not dealing directly with students, right? And so identifying those, a challenge, I would say, it seems obvious that you have CTE instructors in all the schools that would more or less be leading the charge, but with folks distributed out geographically all over and schools obviously functioning slightly different, sort of that decentralized model has, I would say, when I say we, I'm including all of the school partners and program partners, but this is just one teeny tiny piece of a big puzzle. So,
right.
And
just making go ahead.
Well, no, it's just that's just, it's awesome, and it's also challenging.
Yeah, so Applicant puts the onus and highlights the need for strong partnerships and who to consider in that group. So, and when you were putting your program together, it wasn't just education at the table, thinking about what the students were going to be earning or learning. That was also influenced and directed by your labor and industry partners at the table.
Absolutely. Yep.
Great.
Now, insofar as targeted service population geographical area, that section is going to, number one, define who your program or who your program serves, and also where, obviously, by the title of the slide. But we have programs that service high schools through registered apprenticeship. We have programs that work directly with women. We have programs that work with individuals who have been previously adults in custody or prior incarcerations that are giving them an opportunity to get a second chance at getting into the workforce. We work with organizations that help underprivileged individuals. So all these pre-apprenticeship programs have a targeted service population that they work with. And that's what we need to make sure that you identify, who you're working with and the purpose behind that. Then also where you're operating. Because if you're operating in the Portland metro area, that means that the resources available to you are going to be substantially different than if you're working out of like Clam Falls, for example. So it helps, number one, the pre-apprenticeship program become a little bit more defined. In addition to that, also allows us to help identify where you can find assistance, what programs can provide you with assistance. Go ahead, Gabby.
John, John, I have a question. You had mentioned EEO and affirmative action earlier. Would you be willing to share what you mean by that and how pre-apprenticeship may or may not be able to help with some of those regulations within registered apprenticeship?
Absolutely. All right, folks, be comfortable. Here we go. All right, affirmative action, equal employment opportunity laws. When a registered apprenticeship program has hit the threshold of 4 apprentices, they're then held to the requirements of CFR 2930, which means that they have to establish an affirmative action work plan, as well as affirmative action goals and timetables to help outline their participations for both women and minorities in the registered trades. As part of a registered apprenticeship program, once they've hit that threshold, they are required also to outline selection procedures. Now, selection procedures are how they identify and bring people into their program, whether they use direct sponsorship model, where they use a ranked list, or if it's a random first in, first out, or if they do a referral service, whatever they have set up as their selection procedures for bringing apprentices into their program. And here's where pre-apprenticeship comes into that. Pre-apprenticeship serves as an avenue for their selection method in the form of there is something called an exception. An exception is when you deviate from your selection procedures by bringing this person into your program through that approved exception. And pre-apprenticeship programs are, for many programs, an approved exception, meaning that if you have an applicant who has completed a certified and approved and registered pre-apprenticeship program, that program, the apprenticeship program, I keep saying program a lot, but I'm trying not to, that apprenticeship program can then bring that individual into the apprenticeship program directly through either direct entry or through advanced standing because they completed that pre-approved and pre-registered pre-apprenticeship program. Wow, that's a lot of pre's in one word, in one sentence, isn't it? But in other words, if they're in your program and the apprenticeship program has an exception to allow pre-apprentices to enter in through it as through direct entry, that's the pathway for direct employment. And that's why it's important that pre-apprenticeship programs work with registered apprenticeship programs and create that pathway, because that helps facilitate people getting jobs and helps facilitate career pathways being established. Does that help you, Abby? Or was I too loquacious in that?
Nope. I think that was very helpful. Thank you.
Okay. I try to be too verbose when talking about the excitement of regulations, but I know that everyone's like, wow, regulations are great. I know. They're more fun than the bag of hammers.
Yes. Shereen, did you want to add anything to either what John said or, okay, moving on. I think this also ties in, John, to what you were talking about earlier, but I think this is an area to really point out in terms of the different outreach and recruitment methods.
Yes. So all registered apprenticeship programs are required, once they hit that threshold of 4 apprentices, to outline their outreach, retention, and recruitment activities. Also, pre-apprenticeship programs fall within that scope of responsibility for the very purpose of their program. We want to know what specific activities that you use to help recruit people into your pre-apprenticeship program. Are you working directly with a high school? Is this something that students can sign up for? Are you working with work source centers to help people who are struggling to find work? Are you working with community-based organizations that help shepherd, perhaps, like, for example, women in trades? Like, they help women get necessary skill sets and bring them into the registered trades. So how do they go about recruiting women into their programs? They work with shelters. They work with secondary educational facilities. I mean, there's a whole wide variety of ways that you can do outreach to different segments of the population. For example, apprenticeship has a requirement that very soon that individuals who identify as differently abled will have a certain aspirational goal of participation in apprenticeship. So that normally when someone says, well, we have to recruit people people with disabilities, you think wheelchair, or you think somebody who is missing a limb. But people with disabilities covers a wide gamut of individuals, people with learning disabilities, people who are colorblind, people who perhaps are unable to, or even sometimes English is a second or third language. All those fall within different aspects in recruitment, aspects and areas where people do recruitment. So outline those methods. We want to know, where you're recruiting, and if necessary, help you and point you in a direction where you can get more assistance doing that. Because the entire point of this is not only to register a program, but give you tools to be successful doing it. Does that make sense? I can't see everybody's faces, but I'm going to assume everybody's nodding like, yeah, John, we get you.
And John, does the Bureau of Labor and Industries look at data in terms of registered apprenticeship programs to see if those outreach and recruitment methods are working? And if they aren't, what happens there? Or can you share a little bit about that?
I'll be candid. When we are fully staffed and have more apprentice representatives, yes. When it's just me and maybe one or two other people, not so much immediately. But we do review the programs. When we were fully staffed, we were doing this more. We were more active and proactive about evaluating the methods in which programs report data to us. The main thing, though, is we have to have programs report data to us. So right now we're in that stage of, we just established the entire paradigm and certification method for programs to become registered with us for pre-apprenticeship. Now we're in that stage of collecting all the data as to how they operate and where they're operating from. So give us time and we'll be able to properly provide that technical assistance aspects. Most of the technical assistance that you get from us is during the creation of the program, because that's when we can put enough eyes on it, enough resources on it to help you get to that stage for approval. And by that time, we've already evaluated who you're servicing, where you're servicing them, and what the requirements are of the program, and what we can do to help you get to that point. So at that point, we give you that big, push up front, and then as we get more staff, we'll be able to provide even further technical assistance as far as how to improve your program. Also, we have pre-apprenticeship coordinator meetings quite often where an individual such as myself will participate in there. Maybe not be as talkative, but we'll definitely be in there to help provide best practices and also allow you folks to work with each other to share what you're doing in order to help each other out.
Great, thank you. Shireen, did you want to talk about this piece of all in terms of your program?
Yeah, I mean, just I would just say, and this is kind of pointing out the obvious, but being in COVID has put a massive wrench in our efforts to accomplish what we want with pre-apprenticeship, with everything, but pre-apprenticeship specifically here. And so we were in our year one of launch and COVID hit right in the middle of it. And so unfortunately, I think some of the momentum, the excitement hasn't been lost, but I think some of the momentum that we had in terms of doing some specific recruiting, we have some really big, career events where folks from, representatives from registered apprenticeship and other areas come and table, and there's a lot of activity. All of that obviously is not happening. And so anyway, it's a bummer, but I think we're excited for ramping up as soon as we can get out. So
great.
Nothing that nobody else is also dealing with.
Now, the minimum requirements for the program. This is where I caution programs to understand the principles behind discrimination laws and understanding that certain elements of what they require for minimum qualifications must meet the threshold of legal employment. I know, I gotta say as a disclaimer. In other words, the requirements you put in your program must not create barriers to employment or have any type of discriminatory language in there, be it inadvertent. For example, if there's no law stating that they have to be 18 years of age, then is your requirement being 18 years of age going to be really reasonable? It may not be illegal, but is it reasonable? Or do you have anything in there saying if they are 40 years of age or older, then this program does not apply to them? There has to be a substantiated reason behind that. So when you're looking at the minimum qualifications and the prerequisites for the program, I would recommend that you work with your AR to ensure that there are no illegal hiring criteria being accidentally or inadvertently put in there. Not saying that any of you would do that, but things happen, and that's how programs get in trouble and so on and so forth. So we want to make sure that you folks understand that we're here to help you make sure that doesn't happen.
And Shireen, I remember when bringing your group together, there was in some ways some confusion and discussions, I think, around prerequisites and assessments in terms of your programs, which are we're looking at this program model of registered apprenticeship being embedded into current or existing CT programs of study and not trying to create an extra add-on or something outside of what already exists. Can you share a little bit about those discussions, some of the balancing acts that we had to do around meeting labor and industry needs about wanting the best, and at the same time not making that inaccessible for all students in particular programs?
Yeah, I mean, I think you just did a great job of, you actually described it better than I could. No, I mean, okay. But I think you're absolutely right that it was making sure that, and this was a piece that I just want to, emphasize here, actually related to this, and that is that all voices felt heard and felt like they were represented at the table, and that is that the needs of the various industry and labor folks, that the educators in the room also understood that these are important elements to include. And again, finding that balance of kind of the checklist of curriculum outcomes, if you will, that to have as a part of the program, and identifying, because we weren't doing an add-on, the pre-apprenticeship is not this out here thing, it's embedded in with the programs of study, making sure that the integrity of the pre-apprenticeship isn't lost in the process, but really understanding that the skills we're talking about are important regardless of whether you pursue an apprenticeship program or not. These are like work-ready, important kind of life skills too. So I think there was a lot of kind of back and forth, and, I can remember a couple of the, I think it was registered apprenticeship folks that were wanting, like, there's conversation about requiring driver's license and requiring, adding a whole additional course into the process anyway. But having those conversations and making sure that everybody's heard and that we're ultimately come to a, equal ground.
On the same page.
Yep.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. And I think we've covered this pretty much more than once in some of the other slides. Essentially, you get the registered apprenticeship program that you're partnering with needs to write a letter of support or memorandum of understanding for your program. So if you're partnering with, for example, like the sheet metal workers, they need to provide a letter of support and a memorandum of understanding saying, yes, we are partnered with this program, we support the program curriculum, and by golly, we like these folks. So we want something like that. It's one of the requirements for the toolkit, and what that does, it also creates that relationship and fosters that relationship with the registered apprenticeship program and your pre-apprenticeship program, for helping them be able to list you as a affirmative action resource for their EEO plan.
Shireen?
Yeah, and I don't know if this is the right spot for this. I think it is, but we, in terms of getting those the kind of memorandums of understanding, or the support letters, we actually went through a pretty lengthy process to identify exactly, to go beyond just, hey, yeah, we support you, to really, what is it that your organization is going to do with and for students, right? Or how are you going to, what exactly is it that you are going to provide if a student comes in with a pre-apprenticeship certificate? You know, how is that going to impact their ability to be a part of your organization or get entry? And so we created almost like a checklist of options that they could look at as examples, and then added to that, but really came up with kind of a comprehensive, some of the non-union labor folks were like, we'll guarantee interviews, and we'll kind of a bit more generic, if you will. And then of course, some of the registered apprenticeship folks were like, we'll give points, preferred points, but really trying to dial in to how are we going to be partners here?
Yes. And I think you bring up, and we're getting a couple questions about letters of support. Are they the same as MOUs? And Shireen, I think you outlined it very well. And just to provide a little bit more context, is that before the toolkit and application kind of details and untangling some of this from the Bureau, before it was just letters of support that just said, we support this program, without the details of what it is that they support and how they're going to show that support, to Shireen's point. And so memos of understanding, whether you use that terminology, letters of support, each one of those has to outline what that partner is willing and committed and agreed to providing for pre-apprentices going through their program. So whether it's, again, Shireen talked about it and John talked about it, and many programs on the call here or program providers do, is get commitments saying that this particular program, students that go through this and complete, they'll get an interview. Or that partner will provide the OSHA 10 safety training and forklifting training. Or this organization will help in apprentices getting their driver's license, working on interview skills and resume building, things like that, which is a lot more detailed, but also it's trying to keep your partners accountable. So it doesn't fall just on the education side or the workforce side. It's a joint collaboration, and it's a true partnership that holds people accountable for the things that they say they were going to do. So it's not at the expense of the participants, and so that they can be successful.
Okay. So the first sections of the pre-apprenticeship agreement or toolkit require you to be, descriptive and write, these big narrative chunks. The second section allows you to be specific and bullet pointed. In other words, we want to know the program outline. We want to know what facilities you have on hand and who the staff are going to be, as well as their credentials. We want to know what the training outline is going to look like, the work processes, the related training curriculum, and the methods of delivery for the students. And then lastly, the last part of it are going to be all the assurances, the signatures, as well as the little checklist we have at the very, very end that provides verification for everything that you're submitting. Now, the training outline is going to be put into a structure where it mimics a registered apprenticeship program, where it lists the work processes and perhaps the number of hours and or competencies that are going to be learned, and what the rubric or grading criteria behind that's going to be. The curriculum or the related training are going to provide them with industry credentials and or perhaps even community college or high school education credits, what that's going to look like, and also like what's the method of delivery. Is this going to be distance learning, i.e. online? Is it going to be hands-on in like a lab? Is it going to be classroom, like for traditional classroom? Or is it going to be like module based? We want to know what the method of delivery is going to be for both not only the related training, but also the hands-on instruction. I mean, we have to understand and know what you're doing as far as training these people and providing them with the necessary skill set. The facility information is going to be a full outline insofar as who's training your classes, who's providing the instructions, and their qualifications. And we need that. We need the instructor qualifications so we can ensure they're approved to train either in the CTE mindset or for a pre-apprenticeship program. And then lastly, the signatures and assurances. We need verification that everything that you're submitting to us is above board, is with the support of the registered apprenticeship program, that you have the facilities to actually do the training in, and that there is financial backing for you folks to operate. So first part of the application, we want descriptions, we want explanations. The second part of it, we want lists, essentially.
Shireen, do you have anything? I think that was pretty straightforward, but is there anything you'd like to add?
Well, I was just going to say, one of the benefits of rolling into the program of study model is that we were able to immediately utilize all of, the teachers have obviously all gone through the being CT certified and having all of their credentials and resumes and experience and standards from the program kind of built in. But having that trade skills course, because it was a community college course, being able to offer the dual credit, as John mentioned, is another kind of that dual credit piece. And we, I don't know if this is still part of the application, but like, photographs of each of the labs and measuring out the spaces, and I assume that's all standard.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. And once again, we have remember, get your partners on board, identify pathways, and contact BOLI. Number 3 being perhaps, the one that you want to do the least, but contact BOLI. We're here to help you out.
Now, we're going to pause there. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, John.
I was just going to say, I apologize that a lot of this I didn't have a lot of chance to prepare. Gabby has done an amazing job of creating the slides and creating the format for this presentation. So I have to apologize that I didn't have a lot of time to prepare for it. So if you have any questions over what I've gone over thus far before we get into the resources section, please, by all means, ask away, because I would love to provide you guys with information.
No apologies, John, and I'm sure everybody understands. These are everybody's contact information. John's is the general APV email address for right now, but like he said, he'll be monitoring that email very closely around pre-apprenticeship, so that is one way to get a hold of him. Shireen does have to duck out here for another meeting, so I wanted to allow any questions or have any questions for her specifically to come up right now, or you do have her email address. But did you, Shireen, want to share any final comments or statements before you have to leave?
Well, that was going to be it, Gabby, is that I am completely open and available if anybody wants to reach out. I would say that I saw in the chat that there are a few other folks in this group that have done completed applications, and I'm sure that the resources even in this group outside of me are tremendous. I don't know that I would consider myself, we're kind of, you know, we're inching along at if you think of a continuum, we're still at like phase 1. I feel like, even though it was a big process, but yeah, but I just thank you for giving me an opportunity to come, and it's exciting that all of you are moving in this direction. So
yeah, well, thank you for sharing what you know, and I'm sure it's been helpful here. And thank you for spending some time with us here today.
all right,
So,
well,
bye-bye.
bye.
Yep.
Okay. So insofar as resources, we do have the OregonApprenticeship.org website, which we try to really direct people to go to in order to get more information about what trades we have available, as well as partners in your area, as well as useful tools as far as identifying career pathways, resources from other agencies, because this is a shared resource for multiple groups. And I really stress that this is actually a very helpful website for those who are interested in becoming pre-apprenticeship partners. And that's all I have for the presentation. Does anyone have any questions for me insofar as like what to do or how this is laid out?
Also, just,
go ahead,
sorry,
Gabby.
I'm just going to point out, because many of you, and to some that I wanted to share resources or their completed applications. This is the pre-apprenticeship page on the Oregon Bureau of Labor and Industries website. You can go here, click on the plus sign, and there will be links to provider agreements or those applications that have been filled out, and you can use those as examples. You will find a list of all those programs here, some that were mentioned earlier, and some that were part of the program model program design conversation on Tuesday. So go ahead, John. I think we were getting a couple questions already.
How long does the process take to get approved from start to finish? That is a good question. It really depends on how busy I am in the week. All final approvals are done quarterly. So we have council cutoff 1 month prior to subcommittee, because council meets once every quarter. So generally, it takes less than a quarter usually to get you squared away. So if you are ready to go in December, by the March meeting, we can have your application packet and program ready to go. It really takes me very, very little time to get you squared away. Usually 2 or 3 phone conversations at max, and 1 or 2 email exchanges to really get everything concreted in. The hardest part of the entire process is going to be you reaching out and getting the registered apprenticeship program to communicate with you and establish that relationship. Everything else, as an organization or a institution, whatnot, you've already got that in hand. That's already in your backyard. You got that. It's just establishing that reach over on the fence to somebody else to get help is gonna be the hard part. And all we do is help you process everything along the way. So TLDR, I think it's anywhere from 2 weeks to a month to get you guys squared away once you have all your stuff together.
Liz, did you have a question?
Yeah, so I just want to kind of outline the process to make sure I get it. So the first thing would be look at that list on Bully of the registered apprenticeships, identify 1 or possibly more where it aligns with what we have going on in our school, and contact those folks, and also at the same time be rounding up other partners who can do a good job of advising us on our steps. Get that piece squared away and then start working on the applications. And as I'm working on the applications and I have a question, I can come to you, right, John? Okay.
You are correct.
And then once I get the applications filled out and that whole process, like that's really kind of my 2 big steps, right?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. I just want to make sure I was tracking that properly.
Like here's an example of the pre-apprenticeship program I just approved or just got set for approval. Program wanted to do a pre-apprenticeship program for inside electricians. Inside electricians are a licensed trade. Therefore, there's a little bit of a challenge there because you can't have people doing licensed work in a pre-apprenticeship program. So I took them, I said, hey, here are the people in your area. You want to go ahead and establish a relationship with Area 1 Inside Electrical, which is a large inside electrical program. They established a relationship. They submitted me the application. They got their related training provider to work with them, and they got me the information packet. Within 3 days, I was able to get them feedback, get everything squared away, and I got them on the council docket like a week later. And that may be because I'm fast or whatever, but I mean, it generally that's realistically how long it should take. I mean, the toolkit's outlined to where you fill it out, have everything in there. It takes me very little time to go, yes, 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 yes. That looks weird. Yes, yes, yes. Okay. So it's not a daunting process. Like, we have done our best to ensure that this bureaucratic process doesn't make you hate everything. So
I just want to add to that by saying that thank you, John, in that, because you guys have that committee that was formed for going through these, and all of the work that you guys have done has been super helpful to streamlining that. Because when I started this, it was not this simple, and I had a lot of help. I was really lucky, but the way that the process works now is much easier to navigate, and I really appreciate all the time and energy and work that you guys have put into that. So some of you that might be feeling really overwhelmed by this, you know, I know that it looks kind of scary on its face, but it's not as complicated as it seems. I mean, it takes some time and energy and work, but they really walk you through the process and are there to answer your questions and really utilize them. And for those of us that have programs already, please reach out and know that we're willing to help you and get you through that too, because we're all in this together, and the more opportunities we can provide for kids, the better we all are. So, you know, don't be afraid to ask for help, but just know that Gabby and John and those guys are amazing, and Abby at Foley too. And they've just been incredible, and they're a great resource, so use them. Just my 2 cents.
Thanks, Angie.
well, that also, we want to take the stance so that regulations are not a fence that you have to operate within, but actually a foundation that you operate upon. So we're doing our best to ensure that you guys are able to navigate those requirements and not feel like you are stuck in a bureaucratic rut. I mean, trust me, I know. I have the ability to go down the bureaucratic fjords and get lost for days. All it takes is one weird regulatory language notation. But we are trying our best to ensure that industry feels engaged and resources are available to all those applicants who want to get into the trades. Because I got news for you. We need more tradespeople, a lot more tradespeople. And when I say a lot, I'm talking like an order of magnitude bigger than 10 or 1,000. A lot. Math is hard. Sorry. Perhaps I need pre-apprenticeship. All right. Any other questions for me or anything?
I'm not seeing any go through the chat, which either we did our job or people are still lost, but I think I'm going to go with the first one. And I'm going to hand it back over to Liz and Kristen. And thank you, John, for your time and helping be a resource.
All right. I'm going to go ahead and drop off the call. If y'all have any other questions, whatever, please feel free to reach out to us at the General ATD email box, or you can harass Gabby and she'll go ahead and let me know. And like I said, we're here to help you folks out and get y'all set up for pre-apprenticeship, because, I mean, it's an important element for registered apprenticeship to have pre-apprenticeship programs established. So your work matters to us. Your work matters to industry. Thank you.
Thank you, John. This has been awesome. This is exactly what I was hoping for as far as my personal needs. And so I hope it helped out a lot of people. And so big thanks to Shireen and John today. Awesome way to end this 3-part series. And Gabby, you're fantastic. I'm pretty sure you have your hands in pretty much everything going on at ODE. And I don't know how you balance it all, but I really appreciate all of your work that you put into lining our speakers up in this entire process. So thank you very much. I appreciate you. GBSD appreciates you. I think everyone in this call appreciates you. So I'll go ahead and pass it off now to Kristen if she has any last words she'd like to say.
Thank you. I think you did a wonderful job thanking everybody. So I will just say ditto on that. And then just remind everyone that as soon as we get all of the materials from the 3 trainings, we will send out one email to everyone with all 3 of the training PowerPoints and other resources. So stay tuned for that next week. And we really appreciate everyone joining us for this. Thank you very, very much, and have a wonderful rest of your day.